As we record this, the excitement is palpable. We record this backstage session on Tuesdays, and tonight, as I speak here, why do I grapple so much with pre-recorded things? Like this has been going on for 100 years, and I still can't really get my head around the idea that I'm not talking to you right now at the moment when I'm talking to you. But in any case, CNN is so excited about the final Democratic presidential debate before I guess in 20 days, they're going to take up caucusing in Iowa. And they are running nonstop live shot of the debate stage at the venue. Yes. Not only are they running it like while they're talking about other things, there's a little shot of the debate stage. They're running
like the launch pad, like the 39B, where the Saturn V sits poised for its epic journey in only 2 days.
Hey, have they been doing any stories on that impeachment?
They're showing it during commercials. Like commercial doesn't take up the whole screen.
Oh, for the love of God! When is that?
It's supposed to be. This is Tuesday, the 14th of January. The debate is tonight at I think 9:00 Eastern time or something like that. But by the time people see this, it will have already happened. But I just think, like, how can you build the anticipation? And the last clip of this that I saw as I was, getting dressed and coming into my studio, there was actually a guy with a big dust mop, like pushing it across the stage. It was like a Carol Burnett. TV. It was a Carol Burnett scene where that cartoon character comes in and sweeps the floor.
Yeah, and after they're done, they've got a guy with a real wide brush, and he's the same guy that follows parades with horses in it.
Yeah, they're gonna need a bigger brush.
But they could not be more excited, and they're really hoping, and maybe you guys are going to talk about this, stop me if you are, but they're really hoping that a big battle breaks out, a Donnybrook between Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren because of things that either they did or did not say, or that were said or not said by some of their supporters.
By the way, those of you that are already tuned in to the debate stage, there's a pretty big excitement spike about 3.5 hours before the debate where the sound guy comes on and does a couple sound checks. So you don't want to miss that, certainly.
Really?
You should DVR that.
He comes out as a test 1, 2, 1, 2. Check, 1, 2.
I'll always remember where I was when I heard that Reagan had been shot. And I will always remember when the sound check guy came out on stage 3.5 hours before the final pre-Iowa debate.
He's wearing a Make America Great Again hat.
But it's not even a close-up shot. It's like somewhere in the back of the auditorium, so you can see.
Well, you don't want to overwhelm people, man. You can't go right to the close-up of something
if they actually zoomed in on a podium.
And the anchors, every time they come back from a commercial, have to tell you what's happening, because otherwise it's inexplicable that there's a picture of an empty stage in the corner of the screen.
I think somebody ought to ambush them by asking them how many stars are in the American flag, because not only would they not know the candidates, but they wouldn't be able to look around and check, because there's not one anywhere in sight ever, because that'd be offensive. People. And
I have a follow-up question. What are their names?
No, wait a minute. Hang on. Of the 50 stars?
Yeah.
I could probably do that, but I want to look at this lineup here. So the thing we're getting all excited about, so excited that we have to view the empty stage for hours on end before the thing actually happens.
It's like pre-breathing oxygen before you go down on the dive,
Yeah.
You can't just go into this kind of thing.
No.
You got to get your system ready for it, for the shock of it.
And this stage is going to be filled. I mean, this is like showing up in Vegas in 1963 and seeing on the sign at the Sands, tonight, Sammy, maybe Dino, maybe Frank, right? Because you're getting Sammy for sure, but Dino and Frank might show up. And tonight, we know for sure that we're getting Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Pete Buttigieg, Tom Steyer, and Amy Klobuchar. You know for sure they're coming out. Wow.
You're getting 3 presidential candidates, 1 vice presidential candidate, and 2 people who you'll never see again.
That seems fair. By the way, that Tonight Sammy thing was a real thing. You could see out on in front of the Sands on a Friday or
Frank?
Saturday. Yeah, maybe Dino, maybe Frank.
So they could stop by.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well, that's the kind of
I came
event
across that
this
picture
is.
on a Google image search years ago, and I just went, "Wow, you can't do that anymore."
Well, there's no discussion, at least that I heard, because what I try to do is I watch CNN, because on the vast spectrum of MSNBC, CNN, and Fox News, even though I would not describe CNN as being centrist, if you position them between MSNBC and Fox News, they're kind of centrist. And so I put just in the center of that, not in the center of American political thought. But they, what was my point? The only thing that they can seem to talk about is whether or not there are going to be some sparks, some fireworks, because apparently at some point in the distant past, Bernie Sanders had said in a private conversation with Elizabeth Warren that he didn't think that a woman could be elected president, which Sanders now vehemently denies.
Well, to be fair, he said it in 1878. I mean,
times have changed since then. Yeah.
And then there's also apparently Elizabeth is upset because she's saying Bernie's people are out there slamming her, and slamming is kind of a vigorous word for that. And then the media, because what they're really saying is that she's kind of a candidate for the elite. And not really for the people like the true socialist Bernie Sanders is.
Yeah, that's
they
right.
love her down on the res.
They're slamming you, are they, Miss Warren? Yes. Yeah. How? Anyway, that will never get old for me.
So anyway, so if unfortunately it's too late now. You cannot get that empty stage shot anymore. By the time you see this show, the empty stage has already been filled, ruining it.
You just broke thousands of hearts, Scott.
Well, they were all watching. Everybody was watching. It's not going to be news for them.
I predict that it will be better in the ratings than when they fill the stage with candidates.
Do you think there's a chance that they could get kind of ugly up there and make it even worse for these three losers?
Well,
No.
here's the thing: we're hearing all this stuff about bad blood between Sanders and Warren, but Biden is the front runner. He's not the front runner in Iowa, but he's got that South Carolina firewall with black Democratic primary voters. He's got it's something like a 45-point lead or something absurd with black voters 45 and older, and with black voters under 45, it's still something like a 30-point lead. And unless somebody is able to knock that down, I'm not sure how we get anybody other than Joe Biden, unless of course he just completely self-destructs on stage tonight or something like that.
But they won't. He's so protected by the media bubble that even if he has a bad night, they'll talk about how he was sick and how he was tired. He'd been on the campaign trail, and plus he was at the bedside of somebody he loved dearly who was very sick in the hospital with some unspecified disease. Yeah, a coal miner. Yeah. Plus he was working out at the gym, getting ready to physically beat Donald Trump with the chain. The guy was worn down.
And this guy, Joe Biden, bless his heart, he has to hand write at least 30 to 35 times a day sympathy cards to ex-hookers that Hunter has left destitute.
So, and Pete Buttigieg's campaign manager has a sticker on his computer screen that says, "It's the stroke, stupid." They're just waiting for Biden to have a stroke because that's the only chance that Buttigieg has. Okay, so that
also
that
a Billy Squire song.
So, that's right. Oh, Billy Squire. He didn't do Children of the Sun, too, did he? Who did Children of the Sun?
No, I don't think that was Billy Squire, but I could be wrong.
No.
I despised him.
I loved Children of the Sun,
Let's
but only
move on.
with headphones on. Okay, so this week I have the members-only episode. By the way, I'm Scott Ott with Stephen Green and Bill Whittle, and this is a backstage episode, a pre-production planning meeting for our weekly traipsing through the field of posies known as the news. And I have 2 episodes to host this week, and I forget whether I actually have both of them on this sheet, as what I'm looking at right now. 2 episodes or 1, and I could really just completely botch it here. Anyway, one of those, just because I get to go first, is I'd like to talk about the the situation as we go into the impeachment hearings. As we record this now, allegedly there will be a vote this week in the House of Representatives, both appointing managers for the impeachment trial from the House in the Senate, the managers coming from the House, and then also that they will finally and officially send over the 2 articles of impeachment to the Senate to let that trial proceed. Nancy Pelosi, having not convinced Mitch McConnell that he needed to cave and be dictated to by her about the procedure that we should go through to run this trial. And there's one of the congressmen that I saw interviewed today was basically they're all kind of complaining that there's no guarantee that there will be witnesses because they heard that John Bolton was willing to testify. They want him to testify. They want Mick Mulvaney and some of his aides to testify. And the Trump people are basically saying, you want those people to testify? Bring me Hunter Biden's head on a platter. Like, as long as we can get Hunter Biden to testify too, okay, well, let's go at it. So there's no agreement. And apparently the Senate, there are some Republicans in the Senate who are saying, including Mitt Romney, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, and I want to say John Cornyn, I'm not sure on that one, who have said they would like to hear from witnesses. They would like to be able to, have testimony and secure documents and things like that. But they're not going to decide any of that up front. They're going to go into the trial first. So I just kind of like to do a sort of pre-impeachment go round with you guys.
I like it.
About kind of what to look for, what we'd hope, how we'd hope the Republicans and Democrats would conduct themselves, and what we really think they'll do.
I gotta wonder. Maybe I should save this line for the real segment. But what the hell? I give a preview.
Nobody's watching. Go ahead.
To our members, with Pelosi trying to blackmail McConnell into giving Pelosi a say in how the Senate's going to run its impeachment business, is kind of like me telling my kids, now listen, I'm not going to let you eat your vegetables until you clean your room.
What? Wait. Well, and one of the things, I saw an article about how essentially Chuck Schumer is holding all the cards because he wants to hold a series of votes. Senator Schumer, the Democrat, essentially the minority leader, wants to hold some votes compelling Republicans to take a stand on that no witnesses thing, because he thinks that there are some swing state Republicans who, if they were forced to say we don't want any witnesses, will buck the tide of public opinion in their states. In some cases, 2/3 of the people in their states are in favor of calling witnesses.
This always gets me. We always see these kind of maneuvers, and not just from Schumer. We see it from the Republicans too. Republicans, Democrats are always doing this stuff, usually in the Senate, because the Senate has all these arcane rules and procedures and traditions and whatnot, where they try and set these traps because, we'll make it a big election issue that they did or did not vote on this procedural thing that nobody gives a damn about. And I don't think any of those things have ever swayed one actual vote in an actual election from an actual American.
But do they not really care about it? Because that's what I wonder. Because according to the polling, and I've seen polls from 2 different organizations that do polling. One is called Hart Research, H-A-R-T, and I forget what the other one was, indicating that even in some cases, a majority of Republicans think that if you're going to have this trial, that there should be witnesses, we should be able to call witnesses, not just rely upon what was already said in the House.
It seems to me that if the articles of impeachment didn't stand on their own, they had no business issuing them. I mean, this...
Well, these are the charges, Bill, though, but then you bring witnesses
I'm making
at a
the
trial.
counter charges.
Okay.
What I'm saying is you didn't have to wonder about calling witnesses or additional material if it was going to go to trial for Richard Nixon, because everybody know what Richard Nixon had did, and there was evidence and so on. What they're basically saying is we don't feel like we have enough to impeach him with what we got. So now that we finished our investigation, the Senate needs to have another one, which is not their responsibility, in order to find something that they might be able to stick to the wall with and impeach the guy on.
Because it's not an actual trial. It's a political decision to hold a vote as to whether or not to remove a president from office.
Correct.
There are no. It is not a constitutionally defined procedure with Fourth and Fifth Amendment protections and all the rest. It's a purely political procedure, and I think it's correct to be a purely political procedure. I think the founders were right in writing it that way.
High crimes and misdemeanors is very vague, intentionally vague, so that the Senate as a body could decide whether or not this needs to happen.
Yeah, but it's not a trial as we understand it in a criminal sense.
Two things have happened in the interim since the House voted on those charges. One is that John Bolton, who, what was he? He was National Security Advisor. Was that what he was doing most recently? He has expressed his willingness to testify if he were subpoenaed. And so the suggestion there is maybe Bolton can add something that we haven't yet heard, because he would have been in on all the key conversations surrounding this. And then the other was that, and I can't, his last name is escaping me. His first name is Lev. He's an associate of Rudy Giuliani's, and he has just turned over to the House, I believe, Intelligence Committee, his phone that has a bunch of text messages on it. And when his attorney, who's fielding questions, was asked, is this going to hurt President Trump? His response was, well, it's not going to help him. And so essentially what the Democrats are claiming is they've got new evidence, or evidence that has not been considered previously in the hearings that they held in the House.
Well, shouldn't the House take that up, since that's their job?
Just because you're making a good point doesn't mean I have to agree with it.
And wasn't it the House's responsibility to do an exhaustive search of everything before they sent those articles, before they voted on the articles and sent them to the Senate?
Well, they couldn't get Bolton to testify before. You know, they tried to get other people from the administration to testify, and they were blocked at almost every turn by the Trump administration's claim of executive privilege. And in fact, the Trump administration has claimed executive privilege over the former national security advisor's testimony as well. But, you know, previously the president was basically saying, I've done nothing wrong. It was a perfect phone call. Let's have a long trial and air it all out. And then now he seems to be saying, hey, why doesn't the Senate dismiss the charges? There aren't enough votes to dismiss the charges. And it's unclear whether there are enough votes to force witness testimony. Who was it? I think it was Roy Blunt who said there aren't 51 votes to dismiss the charges.
To dismiss, yeah. Yeah, they don't have the votes for it.
Even though they have 53 Republicans, I think, or something like that.
I find that in itself quite alarming.
Yeah. It's an election year.
Well, those Republicans who are voting...
Schumer's tactic is to force, because not much is going to go on the record this year. So if you're running for the Senate against an incumbent, you're not going to have much to get your fingers around as a rival candidate trying to defeat a sitting Republican. And so these are going to be the big votes. These procedural votes, the claim is made, are going to be the big votes of the year when it comes to what you can go after somebody on in an election campaign. And he wants to force those Republicans to go on the record and say one way or another, I either do or do not want witnesses. If they say they don't want those witnesses, then they're seen as being in the pocket of President Trump, and they could be vulnerable among independents and moderates in their state. And if they do say that they want the witnesses, then they've bucked the president, who, you know, very well could say, you know what, I'm coming to your district and I'm going to favor your opponent.
If I was a Republican senator, my decision here would be to make the decision that best supported the interest of my Republican constituents, and the idea that I'm, you know, that forget it. I'll save it for the show.
What kind of high-minded poppycock is that? Okay, save it for the show. Anyway, my other story is actually much smaller scale, but I think no less important. And this came from Reason.com. Our libertarian buddies over at Reason have a story of a guy named Willie Nash, who, while he was being booked on misdemeanor charges, and it wasn't his first criminal activity in life, but as he was being booked on misdemeanor charges, apparently the booking process was not done properly, and he was left in possession of his cell phone, which he's not supposed to have. It's illegal for him to have it in the jail. He apparently did not know that it was illegal for him to have it in the jail, and actually asked a sheriff's deputy at some point if he could charge his phone for it. So
not exactly trying to hide it.
No, and then they took the phone from him. But of course, when he was booked, apparently he had to give them the passcode for his phone. They got the passcode, but they never got the phone. And at first, when they said they had his phone and he had illegally had a phone in there, he denied that it was his phone. But of course, his passcode worked. So
what on earth gives them the right to demand the passcode from him for his phone?
They don't have the right to do that, and you
what
can
on
refuse.
earth compelled him to give it to them?
Yeah. So in any case, that all happened, and here's the kicker. He is in violation of Mississippi Code Section 47-5-193, which, if found guilty, and he was, could result in 3 to 15 years in prison. But they didn't. It wasn't a harsh judge. They only gave him 12 years in prison for that offense.
For having the cell phone.
For having the cell phone.
Dear God.
Not for the underlying reason why he was booked, whatever the misdemeanor was, but for having the cell phone. And all that stuff I just told you was acknowledged by the judge. That the booking wasn't done right, that the alleged perp, Willie Nash, didn't seem to realize that he was in illegal possession of the phone. All of that acknowledged, but the judge kind of basically said, well, we didn't give him the harshest penalty we could have.
That man needs to, if the facts as presented are true and there's nothing else that we're missing, that man needs to be immediately released from jail and given a significant sum of money from the state that inflicted this heinous crime on him. And the judge needs to take his place wherever he was incarcerated.
It's one of those things where, you read it and you go, gee, I hope Reason got this wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Where is it at the bottom here? Oh, okay. It says, they're quoting somebody named King. In a concurring opinion, Associate Justice Leslie King wrote that while the court upheld case law in its ruling, the case, quote, seems to demonstrate a failure of our criminal justice system on multiple levels. And King said it was highly probable that the booking procedure was not followed and that Nash's behavior indicated that he was unaware that his phone was illegal. Anyway, they go on, and it says, King felt that Nash's history showed a change in behavior because he had had previous convictions. Nash had served time for burglary, but for nearly 10 years afterward, Nash had stayed out of trouble and has provided for his wife and 3 children.
What a damn travesty. Is that this happened in Mississippi?
Yeah. Newton County Jail.
Good Lord. And it's 12 years. So this is hard time in prison. This isn't just the county lockup for a little while.
Yeah. It's the same, that statute, by the way, is the same statute where if you're in possession of any weapon, deadly weapon, unauthorized electronic device, contraband item, or cell phone is a felony, carrying a prison sentence of 3 to 15 years. To me, that's where common sense has left the building.
Yeah. Oh.
Anyway, so that's my fun story for our second episode. And since we've almost run out of videotape, we better get on to you guys. Bill, the Betamax is...
I'm on the 6-hour setting.
Do you have it? So you're only recording every 15th frame.
Yeah.
At 200 by 100.
Yeah, 240 interlace.
So Bill Whittle, what would you like to do this week on Right Angle?
Well, I think it's pretty well established and widely known as a fundamental truth that all smart people...
I'm sorry. It doesn't even matter what you're going to say next.
That all smart people, and of course college being filled with smart people, everybody who's got an education hates Donald Trump. And so when Donald Trump emerged into the national championship football game last night and was cheered by the crowd, needless to say, either that cheering had to be piped in other words, artificially broadcast,
yep.
or they weren't really cheering for Trump. They were cheering for their team, even though they only started cheering when Trump was announced, or it took place in the South, and everybody knows that those people are all racist down there.
Clemson and LSU, yep.
Yeah, and then there's another or. And that's the hook for the story. But the bottom line is, if Donald Trump is cheered, even I mean, he doesn't have to be insanely cheered. If he walks out and the sound you hear is cheers rather than boos, then these Democrats are the progressives anyway, are finished. They're done. And I've always suspected this.
You've left something out, Bill, something very important.
What?
I'm not saying it's aliens.
Aliens?
But it's aliens.
And my theory, which I'm surprised did not come up, was that they were applauding for Melania's coat. Because,
as football fans are wont to do.
Because that thing was spectacular.
But think about it. Now, you've got a concentration that is essentially nothing but, well, there are some alumni there, obviously, but you basically got 19, 20-year-old college kids who are all hyped up about the game. It was a complete surprise that he appeared. So it's not like they were prepared.
It's a conclave of the Bohemian Grove.
It was, in a way, kind of just a general sampling of two universities, Purdue and LSU. And Clemson. The president of the United States walks out. And Clemson, sorry, I said Purdue. Clemson. Not that anything other than Florida really matters. I think I've heard of LSU. But the president walks out and he's cheered. I think the only defense of this is that as football fans, they're red-blooded Americans and have a living soul. That's the only explanation that I can come up with, other than the fact that this whole thing about everybody hating Trump is a gigantic lie forced on us by the media narrative. And somebody's going to be even more surprised than Hillary was come November of this year.
So even though these folks were not successful in their effort to defeat this guy at the ballot box, they still think that nobody in the country likes him enough to clap for him.
That's exactly what they think, especially college students. And let me rephrase this. This is a great point, which I will undoubtedly forget during the episode.
I'll write it down.
If Donald Trump had come out and been booed, that wouldn't have been good for our team, but it would have been expected. They're college kids, right? Everybody knows they're all Bernie Sanders supporting people. But the fact that he came out and was cheered is a catastrophe for this left-wing view of the world. And that's why they're doing their very best to explain it away.
I'm sticking with the coat.
I'm going with aliens. Mind control raids from space, Bill. That's certainly more plausible than young people appreciating
abandoning this philosophy
of
yeah. Okay.
Probably president.
The coat looked like some sort of rocket ship reentry heat shield. I mean,
she looked like she was auditioning for the sequel to Aquaman.
I was going to say she was going to be in like a Bowie movie of some sort.
Well, I thought she looked great.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Trump looked relaxed and happy. And actually, I think for the first time, to me, it seemed like the first time I could see that he was actually kind of pleased and relieved. You know, he usually has such thick skin about this, but he seemed to be pretty happy about it.
Nice.
And by the way, the other thing I noticed is like most of the time while they were walking in, he was kind of clapping back at them, you know, like people were clapping for him. So he's kind of clapping back at them. But he was able to reach down and hold Melania's hand before she had a chance to swat it away. So that was impressive. Took her by surprise.
Anyway, that's my contribution.
Lovely. I've got something to say about that, but I'm going to, this once, I'm going to save it for the actual segment because I think it's a good little story.
Well, let me say this about that. Steve Green, it's your turn.
Oh, God. I need a topic. I was hoping this moment wouldn't come, Scott.
You're not supposed to say that out loud.
Damn you and your professional hosting abilities.
You're being a nattering nabob of negativity, Steve.
I thought it was negativism.
I try my best.
Negativism?
I got a couple ideas. One is usually a good kind of clickbait subject, but this one time, I'm not sure. Did you guys see the latest from James O'Keefe?
Yes.
No.
He's got a Bernie field supporter. We can run they did a couple of 30-second clips on Twitter before the big video comes out of a Bernie field organizer going off on this rant about how, number one, if Bernie's not the nominee, they're going to burn Milwaukee down or something like that. And if Trump wins re-election, there are going to be riots in the street, and that we need to essentially, after the Democrats take charge again, denazify the United States. Oh, the Germans
by
had this.
stomping anybody who disagrees with us with our black boots.
Yeah, he literally compared spending the German effort at denazification after the war. And by the way, I don't think there was a better denazification program than what the 8th Air Force did to Germany. That'll teach you not to do that again. Sorry, where was I? So basically saying we're going to have to spend billions of dollars re-educating Americans to stop being fascists, or in this case,
did he
Trump
say
supporters.
re-educating?
And my favorite part was when he said that Stalin had gulags for a reason.
Perfect.
Pretty juicy stuff.
Now, Steve, the reason why I didn't click through on the headline for that, what I knew would be another hidden camera encounter with O'Keefe records somebody saying something horrible, is because it said Sanders field organizer or something like that.
Yeah.
And I just know, having run for office, there's a lot of people out there who are helping your campaign. And on a presidential level, it must be insane. I mean,
and there are a lot of crazies.
You're getting volunteers, but you're also hiring people so fast that it's really hard to maintain any kind of quality control over them. And everybody's got an interest in hitching their wagon to your star, so to speak. So I didn't even look at it because I thought, well, of course there's a bunch of kooky Bernie Sanders supporters out there. The best of the Bernie Sanders supporters believe what he believes, and that puts them on the fringes of the psychological evaluation scheme.
Well, hold on now there, Cochise. Steve, I didn't see the clip yet. I'll watch it before we
there are actually two of them. I'll dredge those up and send them to you.
Let me ask you, when he said these outrageous things, did the crowd of Bernie supporters rise up in boos and
it wasn't a crowd thing, right?
It looked like a restaurant or a bar. The guy sounded like he might have been stoned. You'll have to watch these clips for yourself.
Bernie Sanders supporter stoned?
I know.
You mean he was on the clock?
Well, he doesn't smoke that stuff when he's not at work for Sanders.
That's right. It's part of the Bernie Sanders team health plan. You can get that unlimited supply. So anyway, but I'm not saying that there's no reason to evaluate this video, but that was my first thought was, oh, great.
I like the fact that you guys have different tacks on this, so I am going to make this my subject, and I've got sort of a third contrary take that I can get into for the wrap. So yeah, I like this. My only other story that I possibly had today was let's look one more time at this Democratic field and just how messed up crazy is it. But I feel like we've done enough of those already.
I hope Elizabeth Warren gets out there and says that she's committed to socialism. And then I'd like Bernie to say, I knew Joseph Stalin. I worked with Joseph Stalin. You know Joseph Stalin. Joseph Stalin's a friend of mine. I forgot that third beat. You know Joseph Stalin.
I'm writing down the topics for the shows because I know I'm going to forget it if I don't write them down right now. And that was green right there. And then Whittle was the applause for the president.
Football game.
He lives for the applause.
Hey, Scott, is that your cool writable on e-ink thing? You show that off. have our viewers seen that?
This is from, this is actually made by, I think it's a Korean company called Boyue, Boyue.
It's really cool.
And it's called the Likebook, Likebok, the Likebook Muses, Muses. They have several different Likebook models. Anyway, so it's a note-taking device, and I'm going to hold. Actually, because my camera has a very shallow depth of field, I have to hold it here.
You're going to get right outside that.
So anyway, I'm actually able to use this little plastic stylus and take notes on this thing. If I wanted to, I could back it up to Google Drive or something, but I rarely, the things I write don't have that kind of lasting quality. So I typically just delete them after I write them. But you can write on it, you can draw on it, you can run your Kindle program on it. You can run my reading service that I use is called Scribed, so you can run that as well. You can do what's the other program? Google Play Books. I'm reading a book right now about the U.S. Constitution by Woodrow Wilson, so you know it's got to be good. But anyway, that's on Google Books, and you can draw pictures on it too. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, yeah.
But, I've drawn a little face on there. For some reason, like to draw faces.
I fell in love with that thing the first time you showed it off, because it's not like a complicated iPad. It's really stripped down to exactly what you need it to be. But I couldn't find an app for it that would make it look like I've got halfway decent handwriting. So I gave up on the whole idea.
And it's running, right now it's running Android 6, but I just read this morning that it's going to be able to, in March, they're going to upgrade it to Android 8. And in fact, this week they actually upgraded the whole operating system. So it's a lot better than it used to be. Anyway, I think it was like less than $250. I forget exactly what it was. And it's, for me, the note-taking and drawing were the most important things.
Yeah.
I received no compensation from BoyUA, whatever the name of the company is, for promoting.
I just thought it was cool, and you're always, doing stuff on there, and I thought folks maybe want to see what that was.
That sure was fascinating. You sure do know how to spin a yarn.
Hey, it's the stupid videos where they're showing off products that are getting 150,000 people to watch them. Meanwhile, we're yammering over the fate of the Republic. And that.
We should be cat videos and unboxing videos are the ones to go. So we should be unboxing cats.
Let me see if I still have the box for this around here.
I'll unbox the cats, but you got to be the one to get them in there.
That's fair enough. I have seen cat unboxing videos. Anyway, so that's our tech review for the day. We are going to go about now. We've burned up, oh my goodness, what have we done here? 36 minutes and 17 seconds. I don't know if it's a new record. Somebody's keeping track of this. Ladies and gentlemen, just one little quick note for our members. We've recently updated the blog posting interface, and it was done specifically for a couple of reasons, but one of them is it should now make it easier if you want to embed a YouTube video in your blog post. You just need to clip the little part of the URL of that video. And there's every one of these YouTube videos, it'll say the word watch, and then it'll have like a question mark, the letter V
you got to get rid of that stuff.
Yeah, and just clip and paste the code. Just take that little code right after the V equals, and you paste this in the box. The instructions are on our website, of course. But you can then embed a video there, and we've now made it so that you have your own little media library on our website. So when you post a picture, it goes into your little media library. So should you ever need to reuse that picture, you've got the ability to do that as well. There are a couple
at a nominal service charge.
Yes, that's right. There are a couple of other enhancements in that, but all of that was just an experiment to see if we can use this new gizmo that I got hooked up and do some other things that are actually more substantive when it comes to the survivability of the business model. So, and I know those kinds of words are scary that we're suggesting that we have a business model.
I don't know what they mean.
But anyway, we are grateful to the people who have endured the many modifications. But if you're a member, you figured this out by now, that my strategy in life is ready, fire, aim. And so rather than waiting around for perfectionism, I decide to get something out there, see if I can break it, fix it, try to break it again. And then after a little bit, then I let you break it.
Yeah. So it's kind of a cut twice, measure what? Philosophy.
That's right. Exactly. So we're grateful for those of you who are members who are, and of course, if you're not a member and you're watching this now, you better get right with God by clicking that Become a Member link. Thank you so much for your support, and we will see you on this week's episodes of Right Angle. For Bill and Steve, I'm Scott.